Hi, this is Simon from Tokyo Productions and welcome back to part 3 of this tutorial in which we're looking at building this scene here. So after part 2 you're probably heartily sick of me showing you how to build particle systems, so let's actually get on and do some real compositing. So what I want to concentrate mainly on in this part is replacing the sky and also looking at lighting the character, because obviously if this building is on fire we're going to be needing to see some of that lighting up the edge of the character here as he passes through the frame. So what I've done here is I've created a new project and I've brought the source clip into it, and if you remember this was 1920 1080 and the frame rate was 25 frames a second and the duration is 10 seconds. So our first step is to create a matte for the sky. So I'm going to do that by selecting this action layer, holding down the Alt or Option key and dragging it out into a new group to make a copy. Then I'll come over to the library, filters, color correction, I'll select channel mixer, and holding down the Command key I'll select levels and I'll add them to this top layer here. I'll come over to the inspector and we'll hit the monochrome switch for the channel mixer. Right, this sky obviously is predominantly blue, so this allows us to use the blue channel to make a cutout for it. So let's just turn the red down to 0 and increase the red-blue all the way up to 2. And I think you can see how that's going to start to work. Then what we need to do is adjust the black value here, like so, to turn the black black, but then we need to adjust the white level to bring the sky back and make it nice and white. So adjust that just enough. We'll probably need to push the blacks a little bit harder like that. So you're probably asking why I'm not using the Apple keyer for this, but I had a go and I simply couldn't get a decent result. Maybe you can get a better result. But the technique I'm showing you here is really useful and flexible, so I really wanted to show you this instead. So now we've got a pretty good cutout for our sky, but obviously there's a lot else that we don't really want to be including in this. For example, these windows here, and we need to do something about this building in the background. To do that, we're going to paint black into all of these areas. So an easy way of painting black, I think, is to come over to the generators, color solid, add that, come over to the inspector, click on the color swatch and make it black. I'm just going to turn off this layer because I just don't want to see it at this particular point, and I'm going to turn off this levels here just so I can get a better idea of what needs to be fixed. I'm going to come to the end here where my character has left the frame, so I can get a clear idea of what I need to paint. And to paint this black, I'm going to come down and select the Bezier mask tool. So let's zoom right in to here, reselect the Bezier mask tool. I'm going to click there. I'm going to use the space bar to pan across to here, click here, come across to this corner here, down to here, across to here, up to here. Now we'll need to do a little bit of extra fix on this, but I'll need to zoom in more, so I'm just going to click there roughly for the time being, there, up in this corner here, here, and here. Let's zoom out again, come over here, here, and here. And if we turn our color solid back on again and our levels and turn off the overlays, we've got a pretty good result. I just need to really focus on this little corner here. So again, let's turn off the color solid and the levels, and we need to reselect the edit points tool and make sure our overlays are turned on. Come in really tight. We need to alt click to add another point there, another point there, and we'll just move those around like that. Pull this one down a little bit and maybe move that one down like that. That's probably going to be good enough. Zoom back out again, turn everything back on again, turn off our overlays. We've got a pretty good matte. So now I'm going to come over to the file browser and I'm going to select my sky and I'm going to bring it in at the top like this. Now this incredible image was shot by my friend Rob McIntosh in New Zealand, and I'm going to put a link to it in the comments. So I'm going to select that sky layer, right click, add image mask, and then I'm going to come over to the inspector, and this group here that I've made, which is my sky matte, I'm going to drag into the mask source well and set the source channel to luminance. And then I think you can see that we've now added in this new sky and replaced the rather dull sky that we started with. I'm just going to come to this layer here, properties, just going to set the opacity down to 90%. It's always a good idea when using sky replacement not to go 100%. It'll always just sit in just that little bit better if you do it this way. Let's do a bit of labeling. Let's call this sky and let's call this sky matte. And we can close up that sky matte group and we can close up the sky. This group here we'll call action. I'd just like to do a little color correction of my action layer, so I'm going to select that clip, come to the library, filters, color correction, and I'm going to grab color balance, add it to that clip, click on the shadows and just very gently nudge them blue like that, really not a lot, and the midtones I'm going to make a little bit warmer. Click on the highlights and make those warmer as well. Maybe go quite a long way with the highlights. And I think that just improves things a little bit. Now I don't know whether you've noticed, but this street lamp here has got a little bit of a issue with it. You can see that there. We've got a hole in the middle of the lamp, and that's because our matte is not working quite right. But we're not going to fix the matte, we're going to do something different. We're going to select this color corrected clip, we're going to right click, we're going to make clone layer, and I'm going to drag this out to the top here so we make another group, and I'm going to call this lights. So now I want to select my clone layer there. Just going to pan over a little bit just so we can get a better idea of what we're doing. I'm going to come down and select the circle mask tool. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key and I'm going to drag out an ellipse from the center of the light. Holding down the Alt or Option key means you can drag out from a particular point, and that's quite a useful thing to be able to do. So that's looking like that, and I want to come to the lights group, properties, and set its blending mode to lighten. Then I'm going to come to the library, filters, color correction. I'm going to add a levels again to that group, come over to the inspector, grab the black value and advance it until we stop seeing that circle around it. And if we turn that on and off, you can see how nicely that's fixed our problem. We might just come to that mask and just very slightly feather it in, -10 pixels, probably something like that. And if we look at the top of this building, we really ought to be seeing a little bit of that glow coming off this brightly lit top here. So we can use this same technique for that as well. Again, select the clone layer, again come down to the Bezier mask tool this time, and let's draw a very rough mask around the top of this building. And I think you can see how that's brought back that glow around that light. Again, let's feather it in by -10 pixels. What we can also do now we've added in these lights over the top is to select this lights group, come to the library, filters, glow, and grab glint and apply it to that group at the top there. If we come over to the inspector, just reduce the exposure down a bit, and let's just increase the tint so we get a little bit more blue into there. I think you can see that we've actually got quite a nice effect now, especially when the character moves through. We're getting a nice sort of real world anamorphic streak in there. A little bit too much here on the top of the building, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move my sky. So grab my sky layer there, and I'm just going to bring it up as far as I can, around about there, and now that's all sitting in pretty nicely. So that's a nice little extra that we've gained as well as solving that problem. Now if we come to this frame here at which the character flicks the lighter, you can see that we're seeing through the matte to the sky. I'm just going to fix this by using a different technique, and that's to come over to the library generators, and I'm going to look for lens flare, and I'm going to drag that into the top here to make a new group. I'm just going to turn on my overlays and come down to the adjust item tool, and I just want to position that there like so. If I just turn that off briefly, come to the inspector, just want to keyframe that center position there, because there's a couple of frames in which it's visible. Just going to move that so we keyframe it so it stays in the center like that. Then we can turn off our overlays. I also want to make sure that this only lasts for the duration of the actual flick. So I'm going to come to the first frame, come to mark, mark in, step forward one frame, mark, mark out. Now we want to just adjust the color of this, so click on the lens flare color swatch, make it quite a bit more yellow like that, I think. Let's reduce the size down to about 50. Let's come to the first frame, click on the intensity, set that down to about 0.5. Click forward to the second frame, set that intensity up to about 1.5, just so we get a nice little flash there. And if we play through, that's made something more of that little event there. Really draws your eye, I think. So that's a little quick fix there. So I'm going to call this group lighter. So another thing we can do is add a little bit of light wrap to this scene. So to do that, I'm going to select my sky group there, and I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key, and I'm going to drag it out to the top. I'm just going to call this group light wrap. So what we need to do is we need to take that image mask, and we need to come to the library, filters, blur, Gaussian blur, add that to the image mask. And if we zoom in, so the more I increase that Gaussian blur, the more that light wraps around the edge of the building. So let's go for something like 25 or something like that, maybe 20. I always think it's best to keep it down a little bit. Okay, so we also need to make sure that we're not actually adding the sky back over the top of itself, because if we zoom out, so if we turn off our action and our original sky, you'll see this is our current light wrap group, and we're putting the sky back over the top of itself. We don't want that. We just want that edge that's on the building. So I'm going to take the image mask and I'm going to duplicate it, right click, duplicate, and I'm going to simply delete that Gaussian blur. And in order to just get that edge, I'm going to set the mask blend mode to subtract. And now we have just what we want. We have just that edge there, like that. What we also need to do is we need to blur the foreground so we don't have any details. I mean, there's not very much detail in that sky, but strictly speaking, we need to blur that sky itself. So come back to the library, filters, blur, again grab Gaussian blur, add that to the sky, come over to the inspector, let's set this amount up to about 60. And that just, you may be able to see that that just smooths out any detail in there, which is what we want. So if we turn back on our action and our sky and we zoom in, we probably want to change the blend mode of this group to add, and let's just bring this down. Let's have some value of about 20, because really it wants to be a very subtle effect, something like that. Just going to improve the result, but you don't want to be aware of it. So now we need to look at lighting our character, and this is where it gets quite interesting. How are we going to isolate our character specifically, or rather the brightly lit bits of our character? Well, to do that, I'm going to select my original clip there out of my action group, right click, copy. I'm going to come to the top of my project, object, new group, and I'm going to right click, paste. So we've pasted the action back in. I'm going to delete that color balance because we don't want that. Now, just as we did with our original sky matte, I'm going to use a channel mixer and a levels. So I'm going to come to the library, color correction, select channel mixer, hold down the Command key, select Levels, and add those to this clip. Again, come over to the inspector and switch the channel mixer to monochrome. Now I want to increase the red and green in this instance, but I want to reduce the blue, and as I do that you can see that I'm knocking out the sky, and I probably want to just bring down the green as well just to help me with that, somewhere around like that. So what we've now got is we've got the sky is black, which means we won't have the sky in our matte, but we'll have our character, and the brighter parts of the character are going to be showing through. So when we grab the levels, we can increase the effect of that, crunching down the black so his hair will not be affected. And if we just increase the white value, not a great deal, we want to keep this as a grayscale, something like that. Now obviously we want to be able to just isolate the character from the rest of the scene, and we don't want to have to rotoscope that. So I'm going to show you a technique which is going to make it a lot easier. Again, I'm going to select the action clip there, right click, copy. I'm going to come to the top here, object, new group, right click, paste. I just want to call this clip here light mask, just so we know what's happening. And this group I'm going to call difference matte, because what we're going to do is we're going to be making a difference matte and using that to isolate our character. So I'm going to delete the color balance there. The nice thing about this shot is that it's locked off, which means that we can use the frame where the character has left the scene and calculate the difference between that and the time when the character is in the scene. So let me just explain how that works. So we're going to duplicate this layer, right click, duplicate. I've come to the last frame of the action there. I'm going to come to the library, I'm going to come to behaviors, and I'm going to come to retiming and look for hold frame, and I'm going to add that to that top clip there. Then I'm going to select the clip and come to mark in. Then I'll come to the first frame of the project, come to mark move selected in point, and that's going to move that clip to start at the beginning of the project. Let's come to the end of the project, mark out, and now our freeze runs for the entire duration of the project. So in order to create our difference matte, we are going to select our top layer there, come to properties, and under blend mode we're going to select difference. And as you can see, we've now got the beginnings of a cutout for our character. It's not perfect because he's passing in front of this darkly lit building and he's dark as well, so the difference matte can't work out that there's something different happening where those two have got effectively the same black values. But this is going to be good enough for our purposes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this group and we're just going to apply this same channel mixer levels process to it. So come over to the library, filters, color correction, select channel mixer, hold down the command key, select levels, add that to our difference matte group, and come over to the inspector and switch the channel mixer to monochrome. This time I'm going to crank up the red, green and blue all the way to 2, and you can see we've now got a black and white matte. And as you've probably guessed, we just need to crunch the blacks down like that, and then we need to bring the whites in so we get a nice solid matte like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my light mask group. I'm going to turn off the difference matte because we don't need to see it. With the light mask group selected, I'm going to right click, add image mask, and then I'm going to grab the difference matte and add it to the mask source swell there and switch the source channel to luminance. And now we're not really seeing the result because we're seeing through to all the other layers. I'm just going to quickly add a black solid to this group just so we can get a better feel for how it's working. Add that color solid to the group, come over, make it black, move it to the back, object, send to back, and I'm just going to add the image mask to the clip rather than to the group, and now we can see how that's isolated it. So we've got this problem with the building here, And I'm going to just do something very simple, which is to select the image mask, come to the library, filters, blur, and add a Gaussian blur to the mask like that, and come over to the inspector and just crank it up to 64. And that's just softened everything off, and we can probably get away with this for the purpose of this exercise. So how are we going to light the character? Well, let's just close down some of these groups we don't need to see. That light mask we can turn off. Let's close down the lighter group, the lights, the sky, the action, and the difference mat. Let's come to the top here and come to the library generators, and we're going to look for clouds, and let's drag it in right to the top of the project. Let's come over to the inspector. I want to set the horizontal and vertical scale to 64, and I'll set the speed up to 2. I'm going to open up the gradient. I'm going to click on this left hand colour here, and let's just make that really bright yellow like that, and let's remove that left hand one. Let's grab this right hand one and Alt drag it over to the left, so we've got a copy there. Let's bring this over towards red like that and darken it down just a little bit. Then I want to select this and duplicate it, so right click duplicate, come to properties, set the blend mode to add, and I'm going to come back to the generator and we're just going to offset it randomly on X and Y, just so we've got a different result, just so we're just combining those two. I think that's working a bit better. Okay, so now we're going to use this to light our character. So I'm going to call this group character light. I'm going to right click, add image mask, and what I'm going to use is this light mask that we created. So drag that into the mask source well and set the source channel to luminance. And now if I turn that on and off, you can probably see as the character gets closer, we've got this fire-like lighting effect on him. And if we press play, you can see how that's flickering away as he moves through frame. Really quite a nice effect. So I just want to switch the group here to color dodge. This is a slightly better result. And I'm just going to tweak these clouds here, come to the generators. If I click on there, I can now click on the middle there, and I'm going to set that to 30. And I'll do the same for the other one. So click on there, click on the middle, set that to 30. That's just giving us a little bit more punch to those flames. And of course we can just adjust the offset of the clouds just so we get the kind of illumination we're looking for. That's probably doing me a bit better. I just want to point out very quickly that this matte is really quite noisy. You can probably see, I don't know whether you can, it's boiling away a bit, and it's far from ideal. And really the problem there is that we're taking a very, very dark image and we're trying to use it in ways that are a little bit too subtle, and we're seeing a lot of the noise that's inherent in the image. So if we were doing this for real, we would probably want to grab a noise reduction plugin and add it just to take care of that and help us out with this particular situation. But just wanted to point that out just in case you're wondering what we were seeing there. Okay, let's do a little bit of tidying up here before we finish off. Close up that matte there. We can close up the sky, close up the action group. And I don't want to get carried away here, but if we look over here towards the end, I'm really not happy with the way his hair has got this blue fringe. And that's because the sky matte is not really working quite right just in this particular area here. So I'd like to find a way of fixing that, and the way to do that is to come into the sky matte, and I just want to select the two component parts of it, the clip and the color solid, and I want to group them. So right click group and close that group up, and then I want to right click on that and I want to make clone layer. Now I just want to come down here to the rectangle mask tool, and I just want to isolate this area here, something like that. Come over to the mask and let's feather that out by about 30 pixels. Now what I want to do to this clone layer is just very slightly change the values of the mask there to shrink it in and remove that blue fringe. So I'm going to come over to the library, filters, stylize, and I'm going to come over to min-max and apply that to that clone layer. Now in the matte, the sky area is obviously white, and we want to effectively increase the white and eat away into the black, which is the character. So to do that, we want to switch the min-max mode to maximum, and that's going to allow us to increase the white. So if I just increase that radius, I think you can probably see, I'll give it a value of about 3, turn it on and off. I've just shrunk that matte in just in that area, just enough to take care of the hair. And I think that's probably going to be enough to keep me happy. Okay, so the point of that exercise was to show you that you're not stuck with the one single version of the matte. You can isolate different areas and process them in different ways. This is a really simple way of doing it. I'm just expanding the matte in that particular area. But you really want to think about doing that wherever you're facing problems. Just isolate one particular area and then recombine it with your main matte, and you should be able to solve all manner of tricky problems. So at this point I think we're probably good to go and we can render it out. So what we'll do is come over to the Share menu, Export Movie, select ProRes 42HQ, Next, and I want to call this Fire Build Background, and let's render that out. Then back in our master project here with all the fire in it, we can grab our Fire Build Background render there, and we can just drag it into this background group, and that replaces our original background. And we've got something that's a lot more dramatic than the original with this nice sky. Okay, so you probably think that's a huge amount of unnecessary work, but I really wanted to show you the whole business of building procedural mattes. Don't forget, we haven't had to keyframe anything, we've done it all procedurally. And we've seen the amazing range of things you can do once you've actually built yourself a decent matte in the first place, from light wrap to this character lighting and so on. So really the point of this project was to give you a tour of all the different techniques you can use to create mattes and the different uses you can put them to. And I think you'll agree that there's a lot more to little old motion than just motion graphics, and you can in fact do some fairly elaborate compositing with it. So thanks very much indeed for watching. If I have the time and energy, I am going to make a part 4 of this tutorial in which I plan to look at revisiting the fire and showing you some additional techniques for making it look a little bit more realistic. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again on the next one.